Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar. Today we are taking a look at what might be the most unfortunately titled episode of Avatar. Like, could it need any more title? Yes, that's right. We're talking about The Day of Black Sun, Part 1, The Invasion. I'm Dan, as always. I'm joined by the late Airbender himself. It's Chris Billingham, everyone. Woo!
Hey, kids.
You thought for a minute
Cheers,
you'd gotten away with me like clapping and cheering and being excited that you were present. But I just reordered things a bit this week to throw you off, keep you on your toes.
No, I'm very grateful. No. I feel like usually I'm like, oh god, but you know, this is a morning where I'll take it, Dan. I'll take.
You deserve it, buddy.
I'll take the ego boost.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here.
Oh, cheers, mate. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with you, talking about cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, we have gotten into a bit of a pattern of doing these Saturday mornings, which I do think is like, Saturday morning cartoons is like not really a thing anymore for like the current generation, you know.
And here's a fact for you, Dan. Every time I watch it on a Saturday morning, if I'm still in bed watching it, I hold a teddy bear.
Oh,
true story.
I
do a little cartoons with my bear sort of thing.
Yeah, I quite like to watch. I like to watch it while eating cereal. That's was the thing I did as a kid. You know, I'd sit up and eat my cereal and watch a cartoon on a Saturday morning. Get up early to watch cartoons. Usually like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or something in that vein.
Yeah, and what's nice about that is they're both they're both in their own ways kind of pathetic, and I'm not even sure how yours is pathetic. I think, but
well, it's me reaching for a childhood that doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's me wishing for simpler days. You know, and then like the mail arrives and it's got bills and stuff, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm an adult. Ugh, gross.
Yeah, I suppose that's the difference, isn't it? You go into cereal and cartoons, and me going to teddy bears and cartoons. That's you reaching for a childhood that doesn't exist anymore, and me experiencing an adulthood that probably shouldn't exist either.
Equally sad, but in their own way.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, this is the episode in which the gang gets back together. We everyone that they sort of bumped into across the Earth Kingdom. Mostly from last season, but a couple of little surprises from earlier, all join up to lead their little ragtag invasion force into the Fire Nation on the Day of Black Sun. Because they only get 8 minutes of no sun, the invasion is sort of going to have to struggle its way through to start with, and then get the 8 minutes of the Firebenders being defenseless when it needs it most when they get to the top. So we get this kind of awesome episode where we get to see Sokka's plan executed, a bunch of different really cool inventions, including Sokka just invented submarines and missiles and torpedoes, which I think are all really cool because they're aided by like bending. And then when they get to the end, mate, Firelord's gone. He ain't there.
Which truly does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, even when I watched this the first time, I do recall thinking, what if he just sort of like hides for those 8 minutes? Like, surely he knows the eclipse is coming, right? Like that library described it as the blackest day or the darkest day for Fire Nation. If I led a nation and their darkest day was coming up, I'd be like, mate, I'm going into hiding for just a day. It's fine, innit? It's 8 minutes. Like, I could probably just go into a bunker somewhere for that, yeah?
I can't think of a book I'd finish in 8 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Sure, you'd get through a pamphlet, but, you know, I'd be like, let's bring this little novel with us. Let's take the hour. You know what I mean?
Hey, I've got, like, the average length of a YouTube video these days is 12. I'll just watch a YouTube video for 5 minutes. That's fine. It's not a problem.
A YouTube video on how to be a better leader, probably. But
well, I imagine it's fair to say if you lead somewhere, you're best off doing that job if you're alive. So if I'm president of Dantopia, and Dantopia is about to be, you know, potentially threatened, like, I imagine the various military leaders and stuff would hide me away as leader. to continue
Yeah.
leading from a bunker somewhere. I would imagine, right? I'm not going to be on the front line wearing armor and riding a horse.
No, because I did feel bad. You do feel bad for the guys because they clearly left some of them.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Like the central sort of like area where Aang was expecting to find Ozai is just like absolutely deserted, which means they've just like evacuated all the troops, all the people, knowing this was coming. But just to keep him occupied, I guess they did leave a bunch of troops up there to be completely vulnerable to this attack, which is hilarious because those guys are about to be powerless and like captured. It does seem very much like the Fire Lord was just like, well, we have to lose someone.
I do, like, all joking aside, I do love, like,
how much sense that makes.
Which we're done with the wrap-up, yeah?
Oh, yeah. The only thing I didn't include was that Aang kisses Katara and Zuko's made his choice, it seems. We'll see how that plays out. But, yeah.
All joking aside, I did love that because many times villains in shows like this, villains have obvious flaws and they just go around with those obvious flaws. Like, take a shot, the Sontarans on Doctor Who. Like, you've literally built yourself armour. Why don't you build a bit of armour that fucking goes round that thing on your back that people can hit and knock you out?
With the Sontarans, my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that's intentional. Because it's to force them to always face forward in battle. So for those who don't know the Doctor Who lore, and take a shot if you're playing the have we mentioned Harry Potter, Doctor Who, or there's a third one now. Someone noted the other day. I can't remember what it was. The Sontarans are like designed with an intentional weakness on the back of their neck. And it forces the troops to always face forward and be brave and as they go into battle. But I think that's intentional design flaw to like force them to do that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But so many times they've got just a clear weakness,
right? Yeah, or their arrogance sort of catches them out, and at a certain point, how many times can you go, oh, that villain's ego has got on the better of them there, hasn't it? Because at a certain point you go, yeah, okay, can we maybe not tell that story again? Like, I get it; it's a reasonably good excuse for why a villain would do something stupid because he just didn't believe. Like, and here we go. I can dovetail this into Harry Potter. We can hit 2 in 1, Chris, because often the big flaws in Voldemort's plan throughout the Harry Potter books is explained as, well, he was arrogant. He didn't think a house elf could achieve this. He didn't think a mere student could achieve this. He underestimates Harry Potter, underestimates Creature, he underestimates all these different characters over the course of the books. And if he didn't do any of that, if he was smart enough to go, well, let's just be cautious, he would have never been defeated. Yeah. And while that's fine from a storytelling perspective, I'm not saying that's broken or doesn't work. Of course, there are people out there who are so egomaniacal, they don't. They wouldn't make flaws like that. Of course, yeah, that's an absolute thing people would do. But it is all too often used as an excuse for a villain's plan being flawed in some way so the hero can overcome it. And I think that what I like about this, quite frankly, is just that it's like, no, he's pretty smart, this Fire Lord. And he went, yeah, I'm not going to throw myself in front of that because I'm not a fucking idiot.
He went, it's probably a bad idea, isn't it? Let's do something else.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be completely powerless for 8 whole minutes and vulnerable to any kind of attack. And not only that, but all of my soldiers and guards will be. Probably going to hide for just 8 minutes then. That seems smart. Of course. Like, that's insane if he didn't. So it does make sense. And the way they would explain it in any other show, if he was just there and we were going to get a confrontation between Aang and the Fire Lord, this episode, you'd go like, oh well. His soldiers would be all like, but sir, they're breaking through, and he's like, don't worry, these idiots, these earthbenders and airbenders won't get through my defenses, He'd be all arrogant about it, but no, that makes perfect sense. It's very well done, I thought, because it's also a good twist,
very logical.
Because you're getting halfway through the season, we've got the Day of Black Sun, there's more to the season, so you're just thinking. crap, what do we do here? And we've also set up Aang as being like, I failed at Ba Sing Se, I'm not failing here. And that's a lot of pressure for him to put on himself for this. And when he gets there and the Fire Lord's just gone, it's like your heart drops out. And that's the other thing as well. It's one of those things that you just don't. It makes sense that the Fire Nation should be just gone, hiding, right? You understand that's what should happen. But it's a kids show. You want the hero and the villain to fight. That's just the thing that happens. So you don't even really question it. You just assume Aang's going to get there and the Fire Lord will be on his throne cackling away, and have some other solution to being able to combat Aang. But no, he just boned out. It's great. And it's surprising and a great twist and a great cliffhanger for the episode.
Do you think, and obviously but from my point of view, I'm sort of going, well, is Iroh's clearly planning on busting out of there like a badass.
Yes.
And he seemingly knows. So is he going on timing where everyone else will be weak? And even though he'll be weak as well, he's like, I've got myself so strong that I should be able to get by?
Yeah, my assumption
you can't
was
answer
that he
any
was
of this,
also
but...
thinking of taking advantage of the eclipse. Yeah, and I certainly, my vague memory of when I watched this the first time was like not being sure exactly how, but being like kind of impressed that he was like self-aware enough to know the date and time and be aware of like.
I don't feel that way about Zuko. He just seems like convenient plot timing.
Oh, for sure. Oh, without question. Oh, that is a real just like. But to be fair to them, it's not like they set it up this week. The big turning point for completely. Zuko was in Nightmares and Daydreams.
Yeah, completely.
So like it's you're right. The timing of it is massively coincidental. But still, I think the way they handled it was pretty good in terms of like. You kind of buy it because at least it wasn't just set, suddenly this episode he makes that decision. It's been brewing for a couple episodes, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, completely. Do you think that... And the trouble is, I don't think you're going to have... I don't think you're going to be able to answer this because you've watched this show so many times. But it was interesting watching... I recognised all the returning characters... Mm-hmm. Couldn't tell you where the fuck they came from. Couldn't tell you this apart from like the swamp people and the other air tribe. But like, do you think it's weird because the characters know? Usually in this scenario, when you're bringing everyone back, you'd find some excuse to go. This is Jerry, who we fought with at this battle. This is so and so. We had fun in the sky, whatever. But because the Water Tribe's already met them and the characters know them, they can't really do that. So, do you think there is a sense for the casual first-time watcher that you just gotta ride with that? You just gotta go, all right. Like I recognize these faces. I can't pinpoint exactly who they are, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the reason they get away with the not mattering thing is on the grounds of like their characters aren't really important to this story. It's not like we're dealing with plot points from their episodes. Yeah. If their character
completely.
arcs were still being extended in some way in this episode, I'd feel a bit differently. I'd feel like I want a recap. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're bringing Haru and his dad into it, I think that is it's like episode 6 or 7. It's in prison. So for Haru was the kid that was an earthbender that got found. He was in like a Fire Nation occupied town where they'd sort of were sending all the earthbenders away. Do you remember they were sending them all to that boat? Mm. So Haru is one of the earliest characters they use here. In fact, he's the earliest character that appears here. So if all the characters that sort of show up as their ragtag team. Haru's the one that's from the oldest episode that we've not seen for the longest. And they even make a joke about the fact he's grown a mustache now. If Haru had some sort of mini character arc, some sort of B plot in this episode that extended through his episode where they said, not just the quick line that they do give him where he's like, Katara taught us to be brave in the face of the Fire Nation, which is fine and like totally simple and like a nice way to do it without going into all the details. But if they did like a full-on character arc with Haru here, where he was like going through certain experiences relating to that time and from that episode, I would want more recapping, because you know, it would be absolutely reasonable for someone to not remember the details of an episode from 2 seasons prior, especially when it's just a single 20-minute episode. But because that's never really the point, they never really do any storytelling stuff with them. They're there to make essentially to build up a team and to make the point of, these guys have made so many friends across their adventures. Here's just a selection of them coming to help, and they've all got interesting powers. Let's see those interesting powers come together as they take on the Fire Nation. So
like the dude, the swamp dude coming out with the seaweed was a really cool moment and was a really fun moment. And I think that moment, even if you don't remember or haven't seen, which is possible, that episode,
yes,
that's still cool, because the point of it is, here's a cool visual. Here's something different we can do with the powers. Here's some visual stimulation. It's not to make a point about Aang or any of the characters. You know, it's why maybe this is the third one, but you know, it's why Take a Shot, you know, in terms of Marvel, Spider-Man No Way Home works, because, you know, Lizard, I can understand people thinking Lizard gets underserved, but not. Pardon, sorry. But not in the context of the story. If you haven't seen, it feels underserved to us because we've seen an entire movie about him and none of those themes are explored. But my argument would be, if you haven't seen that movie or don't remember it, then it's no different to Ebony Maw or one of Thanos's side characters. It's just texture. And
it's a monster he fought in another universe. You don't. What more could you possibly need? Do you know what I mean?
And here, it's the same. It's the same sort of thing. It's simply texture. It's a friend they've met along the way who can do some kick-ass stuff, who in a big battle is going to shine because it's a big battle where we want to see kick-ass stuff. And, you know, the battle stuff is fantastic. All the battle stuff, the inventive use of the submarines, the inventive use of, like, Katara creating a bubble for Appa. Mm-hmm. Appa's armor looks sweet. Like,
oh, God, how cool is Appa's armor?
Yeah, it's brilliant. The entire plan, even, like, the Firebender's defenses, like the big rope with fire. You know, they've not got anything below because no one's invented a submarine before. So, yeah,
I think
stuff is wicked.
Like seeing, like, you know, Teo and his dad, who doesn't actually have a name. We discovered this when we watched their episode. The guys from the Northern Air Temple, you know, the scientist dad and his son in the wheelchair. So that's Teo, and his dad never gets a name. He's literally just, like, on the wiki, he's just listed as, like, the machinist or something like that. Like, those are really fun, small, like one-off characters that are just, like, you almost forget exist. Like, they're the sort of characters that you expect never to see again. I do love that this world is... It's like when we first saw Jet a second time, you complimented the show for building that world slowly and, like, having characters that reappear. And then we talked about Boomy showing up multiple times, and, like, you know, characters that when you're watching the first season, you just go, well, they were there for that story of the week, we will never see them again, you know. And yet the world gets, like, slowly built up. I mean, God, I never in a million years thought we'd have seen Haru again from Imprisoned, from, like, it's like episode 6. That was such a one-off story. What possible thing could you do to bring Harry back and continue his story? Well, this, and it's perfect. What a great way to show us how he's grown, without really having to give him, like, screen time.
Who are you talking about, Dan?
What was that, sorry?
Who are you talking about? Which character's that?
Oh, so Haru is the kid that was earthbending, that got whose dad was taken to that boat prison, and then he got taken to the boat prison.
Yeah, like that episode a lot, and I was pleased to see them. I was like, it's the kid, and then yeah, cool. Yeah, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and the only reason actually, Haru's name has always escaped me until they say it on screen, and I go, oh yeah, that's the kid. I know who he is whenever his name is said, but if you showed me a picture of him, I'd be like, oh, what was his name? The reason all of a sudden I'm not forgetting his name is because the Knobhead Hall of Fame, Chris, on or formerly Knobhead of the Week, before we realised we couldn't do it every week, the first one in it is the old man who dubbed Haru in it, and that's how I phrased it every time.
Oh right.
Because remember, it was that old man that like gave him away to the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
And he got nicked because that old man.
He was a prick. I still think he probably is like Chief Knobhead of the Knobhead Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, we got some good competition. We got Master Paku for forcing, for reinforcing, sexism. The patriarchy. We've got that. Earthbending, and this is a quote from you because it's in quote marks. That fucking earthbending child, Tom Tom. We got the guy that was really mean to Appa in the circus, made him be in the circus.
Oh yeah, he was a prick.
He was pretty bad. And then we added the character Hyde from the Headband episode, where he was like the bully at the school. He was a real prick too.
Yeah, he was also a prick.
But because of the fact we always put it as that old man who dubbed Haru in it, I suddenly remember Haru's name.
They're all used very well. It's a lot of fun. It's because this episode really is all spectacle, isn't it? It's very much a part one. It's always difficult to review stuff like this because we haven't had the completed story. And essentially it's everyone's back, big old battle, lovely kiss moment. Yeah, Sokka's going through some shit.
It's everyone's back and they're sort of reverting to the versions of themselves that you most recognize. This episode opens really boldly, I think, with those shots of them on the next to the water, and like they're already in their traditional clothing again, which is the first time we've seen that this season. Sokka and Katara back in the blues, Toph's back in her yellow and green, Aang for some reason still in his Fire Nation outfit. I assume so we can have a moment later, a sort of like a hero moment later where he shaves his head and gets in his new outfit, his new monk gear, which I like, by the way, because it's kind of like a combination of his Fire Nation outfit and his Air Nomad outfit. It's pretty awesome.
I assume. Yeah, the moment where he shaves his hair is particularly cool, isn't it?
So it's weird though, because to have that, you have to show Katara, Sokka, and Toph get changed much sooner than Aang does.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because I just distinctly remember the first time I watched it being like, oh my god, they're back in their outfits, and then Aang shows up and he's still in his Fire Nation one. I'm like, wait a minute, Aang. Catch up, mate. Everyone else is getting ready. What are you doing?
Hurry the fuck up.
Yeah, they're ready for an invasion, mate. What are you doing?
Do you think, and this isn't a nitpick, this is just because you review telly enough, I think it's, even more so that than any kind of writing thing, you start to spot these things. I think you can guess where they brew nicely the Sokka's dad. Something's going to happen to him. It's very foreboding the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And then when you see that guy go in, you're like, well, Sokka's got to take charge now because his dad's about to get, injured or killed. I was worried. I was like, Christ, they're going to kill off their dad halfway through this. They haven't got time to develop that.
I was going to say, they've already lost their mum. They could probably do without that.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't do that. No. That's not particularly a criticism because I sometimes think people are a bit harsh on shows when they're like, oh, I could see that coming. Like, well, yeah, like that's why it's rewarding. That's why you were pleased when it happened because you wanted it to happen.
That is the eternal battle, isn't it, with a television show these days? So many shows have been and gone, and this is the same for TV, movies, and storytelling in general. I think people have become so aware of the tropes and the structures through just watching a lot, which is that's fine, and it's forcing creators to find new and interesting angles on things and ways to subvert tropes. But the problem sometimes is that the correct ending to the story is the one you predict because you've established it in a certain way. The reason people can predict it is because you've laid the groundwork correctly. So you're almost punished for doing your story correctly. You know, you lay the road work down, and it's going north. Your road is going north, and then everyone goes, "What's going north, isn't it?" And then you're like, "Haha!" It turns suddenly, and now it's going south. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that I'm literally going against the direction I was previously going. I feel like I'm doubling back on myself. This doesn't work anymore. It's like, well, yeah. What do you want? Do you want a predictable but satisfying thing, or do you want the unique thing that has the risk of being almost too in the face of the thing that was previously established? You know, it's a tricky balance, and some creators have found great ways to do it. You know, satisfying ways to end stories that still feel subversive or unexpected. Some creators fall flat attempting to do that. You know, and I don't blame anyone for just setting it up and knocking it down, because I think that's also I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it'll be slightly more predictable, but as long as it's satisfying and works narratively, I don't. It's a tricky thing to criticize, you know, and I do often talk about on our Nothing But Static podcast that, like, I want things to be unique. I don't want things to be, but I'm not talking about predictability there. I'm talking about, like, I want storytelling. I want stories I haven't seen before, because I guess in a way that kind of counters that problem. If it is a story that in its most boiled down is new, then I don't have those expectations and predictions.
Yeah, you do, but I think also people get. And I think especially, you know, you get enjoyment from also being able to guess stuff. Like, often the first thing you say about a show, and I don't know if you even notice you do this, but often the first thing you say about a show is what you predicted correctly. Like, sometimes before, not on the podcast, obviously, but if we're just chatting, you'll be like, "Do you see this?" I'll be like, "Yeah." You'll be like, "Saw this coming." Cool. Like, and I think you get, and that's cool.
It's a little game sometimes.
Yeah, and that's I'm not criticizing. There's no problem with that. And I think, like you say, shows get a bit too much heat sometimes when a lot of enjoyment can come from that. Because let me tell you, if every show was completely unpredictable, it wouldn't be as enjoyable, because you wouldn't ever be seeing what the writers, the creators had made you want to see, because you wouldn't. Do you see what I mean? Like, you know, if we see a whole thing of a couple, if the story is about a couple getting together and at the end they don't, that's going to be disappointing.
Yeah, and the only way that wouldn't be disappointing is if you laid the groundwork for them not getting together as being a potential outcome that makes sense. But if you do that, then that can become predictable. So yeah, it's really tricky. Modern day storytelling is really hard, because I do think audience expectations are tougher, and I do think as well there's more. It's funny, isn't it? I think we're in a weird situation where, like, for half the audience there's less media literacy going on. Like, people just flat out not understanding how stories work, and coming up with criticisms that literally make no sense. But there is also a lot of people, and I think more than ever before, that haven't studied storytelling, haven't, you know, been invested in screenwriting their lives, but they're watching a lot of, like, you know, YouTube video essays, listening to lots of podcasts that analyze media, and starting to pick up on the things that they, you know, that they want from stories and stuff, and actually starting to develop really interesting sort of, like, you know, the proliferation of, like, of, like, you know, YouTubers that are just analyzing media now. It's crazy how many of those exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think and a lot of them aren't in any way from the world of media. They've not studied it, they've not worked in it. They just come from a fan place and are getting more. People are analyzing these things more and more. You know, media is becoming not just enjoyed by people now, but also, like, dissected and analysed in ways that it's never really happened before as well. And that's also kind of like, fuck. Like, I do feel for creators, because, you know, who wants their work to be pulled apart that closely.
I don't know if you saw it, and we're going off topic slightly. Although someone commented it, so I imagine someone wants us to say about it. You see, someone commented on I think it was the first episode of this series. It was like, you guys know there's a show called Over Analysing Avatar that's on YouTube. And I went to it, and it's one guy doing 10-minute segments where he deep dives. I didn't watch too much, obviously, because I don't want spoilers. But I saw enough to know it's a dude looking at 10-minute segments. And I was just like, I didn't see whether you responded, but I was personally like, fucking hey, great! Like he's doing a different thing. He's got a slightly similar name, but who cares? Like that's great
it's
fun.
a good. I didn't respond to it because I didn't really understand the comparison. So for me, like. For me, like he's doing and way more successful than us, by the way. It's
way more, and he started after. so
what's that? Sorry?
Way more successful in less time.
Yeah. Started well after us, way more successful. Power to him. That's the power of the short video, isn't it? It's the we do long form content, and it's not for everyone. Long form content like this, where it's just people like discussing it sort of in a more casual sort of conversational way. It isn't for everyone. Some people like to get in, get out. 12 minutes, have someone who's like written down all their thoughts really concisely, and they're not. There's no back and forth. It's just like, here's some interesting thoughts about the show. And they're wonderful videos. Really good videos. Power to them. Like, good work. Really good work.
That's really... I couldn't work out. And I could be misreading it. It could have just been oh, do you know this exists? You can't read tone all the time. But I couldn't work out if there was a sense of like, well, someone else is doing this. Or maybe even... oh, you've copied someone else or whatever. And I was
would be hilarious as an accusation, considering we definitely came first. But yeah.
Yeah. But even, regardless of that, because, and I suppose that's what I was subtly slipping in with, and they've been longer. We've been going in less time. But, fair play. Like, I do it when I
but it's
watch a
different
movie.
kinds of content altogether. Like, they're not even, we're not comparable. We're both doing very different things.
But dude, even if it was the same type of content, how many times have you watched, like, if I watch a film, I'm checking out Dan Mill's review, I'm checking out Council of Geeks review, I'm checking out maybe Half in the Bag, maybe Red Letter Media, maybe Jeremy Johns, like maybe Stuckman. Like I'm checking out people that do the same thing. Who cares?
Right.
It's fine. But anyway, we've gone off piste. I think because, like I say,
but you just reminded me of Red Letter Media now. Just thinking how much I love Red Letter Media. They are when they hate something, they go so hard that it's funny. And some people and I think some people rightly go, they're too negative. And I guess that's true. That's not an untrue criticism of what Red Letter Media do, but I had so much fun sometimes.
I had fun with was a lot of the people a lot of the names I've just made really enjoyed Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I didn't particularly. And because Half in the Bag is Red Letter Media as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the Half in the Bag review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. They were too harsh on some things, I felt. I didn't agree with their sort of rewriting of it. But in general, they were saying the things I was thinking way more than the people that I usually watch. So, but anyway, I think we've gone off piste, partly because it's, like I say, this is difficult. It's part one. It's a very difficult episode to review.
There's still a couple of stuff for us to sort of hit on that we haven't yet. So do you want to talk about the kiss?
Oh yeah, it was a good kiss. Liked it. What I found weird about the kiss is it was almost a real life version of the fantasy thing we saw in the last episode.
Correct.
And it not as smooth, which was quite good, but and sort of Aang saying beforehand, "What if we don't come back?" and you know why he's doing it. No, I think it was nicely done. Part of me felt that it was odd because, like I say, it was just almost what we'd just seen. But actually, I think that's really good because that's consistency. That's Aang taking stuff on board. I thought they both reacted very sweetly. Maybe I'd like to have seen more of Katara kissing back. She was so shocked that kind of, it's a bit he lunges at her and then they fly away. But yeah,
I think she does kind of like lean into it slightly at the end and then she blushes.
Yeah.
So it's not a really completely one-sided interaction.
I'm not. I'm not saying that. Good times. I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too.
I thought it was done well.
I think while I do think that is a fair thing somebody could say about it in against it, that well, they just do this last week, but in his dream, I'm like I think that's kind of the idea, right? Is that he had the dream was what he was thinking about, where his mind was at, and this week, faced with the immediate potential, life-threatening situation, went, well, it's fucking now or never, innit? And just did it.
And what I like about it as well is because, and again, it's the genius of these writers. Now, we know we're watching a television show, and more than that, maybe less so than when it first aired, because, of how people are watching it, and there's a big old list of episodes on Netflix. But we know that we're halfway through the season. We got a lot more to go. The characters don't know that.
Right.
So to not include something like that kiss, you'd go, well, if Aang thinks this is it, why isn't he seizing his moment? Oh, he's not seizing his moment because this isn't actually it. You see that sometimes. Characters behave a little differently because it's not the finale. In moments where they absolutely would have reacted a certain way, they don't because it's not the right episode to. Whereas this felt like a very real world reaction.
Yeah, and I think as well, this tells you something about his character. It's not just about, here's the next scene in the ever-evolving Aang-Katara romance plot. It's also telling us something very, very important about where Aang's mental state is right now, which is he does know he might be about to die. And that gives the episode two things. It gives us the next installment in our, evolving romance between Aang and Katara, but it also gives us a huge piece of information going into this story, which is that Aang doesn't necessarily know he's coming back. And reminding the audience that that's the case, and that's how serious this situation is, then makes the tension of everything that follows it better. So it's both giving us a slice of an ongoing plot, but it's also really enhancing the plot of the week. What we're actually doing. I agree with you. It's kind of genius. Like, placing it here is perfect for a few different reasons. The only thing you've got to sort of say now is, because obviously we've got into a situation where he's gotten into the centre, Fire Lord isn't there. This invasion plan is clearly not about to work out as well as they'd hoped. We've still got one more episode, sort of, it's a two-parter. So you don't know the outcome yet, but, you've got to go then, wow, where does this go? We've got, a handful of episodes between now and the ending. They didn't take a shot. It's time for some Harry Potter referencing. They didn't do Ron Hermione till the very last thing of the very last thing, have them kiss. It's because then you don't have to actually deal with the fallout. Whereas here, we've still got, 10, 11 episodes to sort of...
Yeah, I don't really know what... I just want them to sort of be together and be happy. I don't really know what fallout I want. I don't want them debating it. I don't want Sokka gets annoyed. I think they could even do that well, and that's logical and in character. We've just seen it so many times. Do you know what I mean? I don't want Sokka going, you were worried about how I was gonna react? My best friend and my sister. I don't need Sokka Ross Gellering it. Is what I'm saying.
Or Ron Weasleying it. Like, it's sorry, take another shot. That's a very tight plot, and also with that plot, I don't think it's in Sokka's character.
No, I don't know.
He's protective of his sister, but I don't think he's protective of his sister in that way.
Ron just shrugs, though, when Harry and Ginny get together. Ron. I think the description is he shrugs in a way as if to say, if you must.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because all the stuff with Ron reacting negatively to it is for when it's Ginny and Neville, and then in Harry's head. I remember that. You're right. You're exactly right.
Dean, I think, is the one that because Neville, he just takes her to the ball in Goblet of Fire. It's I think isn't it like Dean Thomas or something?
Oh, why did I say? Yeah, sorry. Why did I say Neville? I meant Dean Thomas. I said the name Neville, but I was thinking of the Dean Thomas thing.
Thinking Dean Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no. I just don't want that. But I hadn't thought of that. I suppose they do have to deal with the fallout of the kiss, which is
because they've placed it so early in the usual storytelling system. Because normally you you do that later. Generally speaking, you do that towards the end, like as we said earlier. So yeah, we will we'll have to see how that plays out. So the other thing we need to talk about, I guess, is the Zuko situation. There's not a lot of Zuko in this episode. We should talk a little bit about Iroh as well, I guess. But what are we thinking?
Zuko, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, he's got a sword. He's talking to pictures of his mum. Like, I don't think he's... Because I don't really know... Because I'm not clever enough. I don't really know what you can... I don't think Zuko's ever gonna disappear and fight with the guys, overtly. I think he might subtly help them. I think he might choose not to give them up. I think he might choose not to attack them. But I can't see him standing side by side with Aang. Maybe I'm wrong. So I don't really know what he's doing, because in my head, the only thing he can do is just bugger off. So I guess I did think whilst watching the episode, is he going to be on his way to buggering off and come into contact with Aang or one of the guys? I don't know how much I want. Part of me wants an Aang Zuko sort of fallout. Part of me also wants him to kind of shit or get off the pot with the Fire Lord. We've seen, we've done enough foreboding. We've done enough. He's a threat. Give me some Mark Hamill. Do you know what I mean? I feel a bit like it's The Force Awakens, and I'm just sat there going, "Show me Hamill."
Yeah.
So yeah, my assumption is maybe he was just sort of going. Maybe he was going to set Iroh free. That would be nice. Like the notion of Iroh goes to break out and Zuko's already there, helping him. Maybe that'd be quite sweet. But yeah, he seems to definitely have a plan. He's like, this is when I make it right. I don't know what that means though. But I'm excited to find out. I think one of the reasons.
Go on.
One of the reasons I don't know what it means is because sometimes with this show you go, well, I don't want to fucking guess because it's not going to be as good as what they do. So why bother? Like, you know what I mean? Why would I? Even,
no, 100%.
Who cares? Just show me what you're planning.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you what it is exactly he says before he sort of picks up his sword, puts his hood up, and leaves. He says, "I know I've made some bad choices, but today I'm going to set things right." As he's at a painting of his mother.
See, maybe he thinks doesn't he suspect that his dad got rid of his mum?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's some sort of revenge thing for her. Maybe. I don't know. Like I say, I just sit there and go, these guys are going to nail whatever it is. I don't need to worry.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on a, we're really from pretty much here till the end. We're on, for me, absolute every minute of everything. There's just gold now. I don't recall much coming up that I'm like, this is all where it all for me starts coming together. This season is really incredible, and I think a lot of what makes this season so good is these. I think there's one point potentially of contention for you, Ju. Not to give you too much spoilers of what's coming. There's an episode that I know fans are a little split on, but Nadia and I both happen to absolutely love. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But otherwise,
Iroh goes on. Is it Iroh?
What was that, sorry?
Is that Iroh goes on a date with the person who's been bringing him tea? Because I've watched that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Basically, the episode before, Aang bursts in and he's like, no, Fire Lord, you're the one not wearing any pants, and they're about to fight, and then it just cuts to Iroh, and he's like, I'm so nervous to be on this date,
That's what I want. So there's a show in Britain called First Dates, where a guy called Fred Sirax, you see multiple people on their first date in the First Dates restaurant. So I want Sokka being the maitre d', and I want Toph being like a really angry waitress, and then it's Aang and Katara, it's Iroh and the tea lady, Zuko is there with May, it's just really
funny.
That's what I want.
I've just realised I've got the sniffles this morning. I've woken up a little bit coldy. And just want to apologise for listeners because I've only just realised that I'm sniffling, and that might not have been very nice to listen to on mic. So I'm sorry.
It's been so unpleasant.
Is it actually?
I think anyone that's been fired, I haven't even known.
Okay.
I think
it's one of those moments where I'm like, there's a 50% chance Chris is making a joke of a thing that's legitimately bothered him for the last 45 minutes, or there's a 50% chance it's not bothered Chris at all, and he's taking the piss out of me for worrying about it.
Yeah, that would be the first option. Would be very mean. That's essentially me going, yeah, let's stick the knife in on this, Dan, you twat. I wrote, like I say, I assume he's just taking advantage and he's gonna bust out of there, which is quite fun. And I really like the way he was like, look, just make an excuse, don't be here.
That was very Iroh, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I assume because it's either going to be Carnage or because he doesn't want anyone to be able to accuse her of actually helping him.
Or a little of both, maybe.
Yeah. But I can't wait till Iroh busts out that sort of that meaty chest that he's got now. And I hope that the guard that's been a continuous knobhead to him is the one that he punches in the face.
Yeah, agreed. One other thing I just want to point out is I always enjoy seeing the Boulder return, who is a reference obviously to the Rock, but voiced by Mick Foley, who for many years was a tag team partner with the Rock in the WWE back in the day. And I always love hearing Mick Foley's sort of half impression of The Rock, because it's like both really good and really bad all at once. And it being Mick Foley specifically, who was always my favourite wrestler growing up, is a real joy. I just love it so much. I'm just always happy when the Boulder shows up.
Yeah, no, he was very funny. That was very comical. They had to do a little bit of a, oh, you're not a villain now thing, didn't they?
Yeah, because the last time we saw them, so specifically the Boulder and the other guy they were fighting Toph, weren't they, at the arena, in front of her parents for some reason. They brought back Pipsqueak and the Duke, but what happened to Smellerby? I've been wondering about that.
I don't know who you're talking about.
So those are Jet's old gang before Jet, vanished in a sea of mysterious situation.
Yes, I did wonder about that. So, because obviously when they first started appearing, I was like, I got pang for Jet and felt angry all over again. Nobody mourned him. Is his gang in it then?
Yeah. Pipsqueak and the Duke, but no Smellerby. Right. And I don't know. There's probably an explanation.
That is the one. As much as I wouldn't want to, because I jest. I completely see. I completely like that with Boulder, etc. They were just like, oh, you guys aren't after us now, and they're like, no, we've changed our ways. Exactly the right way to do it. We don't want to waste time, and also it's worth it to have them in the episode and the fun that you get from that. I would have liked, hey guys, where's Jet? Oh, just to clarify, you fucking left him for dead. What? I'd have taken a 10-minute breakdown of like, well, we need to do this for Jet. Or even that would have been nice. Even just a moment of them saying to his gang, Jet would have loved this. Jet would have been fighting with us. Just, you could even do, or even have them turn to each other if you don't want to get into like Aang and the gang and all of that sort of stuff. Just have those characters turn to each other and say, this is for you, Jet. Something.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing as well. It's a bit interesting, isn't it? Because I've just remembered why Smellerby isn't here. Smellerby isn't here because they split up, didn't they? Jet's gang of freedom fighters divided. When we last saw Jet wasn't with these two. Jet was with Smellerby and the one that never says anything with the sort of hat. God, that's going to drive me mad. Give me a second. It'll come to me. That's going to kill me. Right, I might have to look this up because that's going to break my brain. But basically, there were 5 members of Jet's freedom fighter group. there was Pipsqueak, the Duke, Smellaby, the one I'm forgetting, and Jet. And when we saw Jet in the Earth Kingdom last year, he was just with Smellaby and the one whose name I'm forgetting. The two that appeared this week, the Duke and Pipsqueak, were nowhere to be seen. They'd split up. They'd gone their separate ways. So maybe they weren't present for Jet's demise. But you've got to assume that the guys caught them up on that situation, no?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would have accepted the gang just being back together. And again, even then, if you have them look at each other and go for Jet, you realise that their grief brought them back together.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would have been fine.
Oh, God, and I can't even look up the name of the freedom fighter by just looking at the cast list because that character never fucking speaks. God damn it. That's so annoying. That's really irritating. Oh, God damn it.
I had a weird, like, cough.
Long shot.
It's
long shot, Chris. It's long shot.
There you go.
Right. Full list. Jet, long shot, Pipsqueak, the Duke, and Smellaby.
Cool. I coughed then, and I'm worried it sounded like a belch. I really don't get belching in public and on recordings and stuff. So if it sounded like a belch, it wasn't. I now that we've got the full names, I revert back to I think have all the gang together and have a moment where they look at each other and they go for Jet.
Right. Yeah.
We get you know we get time with the air tribe that do the inventions. We get the boulder gag. 5 seconds of screen time would have just been a really lovely moment, I think.
Yeah, bring all the old freedom fighters of Jets back together at once,
doesn't it? And I know we've had this conversation. I apologise, but where's the power and the emotional weight of killing off a character if you're not then going to do anything with that?
Mm.
I'm just irritated all over again by that, and I just think like. I know why
that's the thing is, though, they were kind of robbed of it, weren't they? They were in a weird situation where, like, that's what they wanted to do, but, you know, Nickelodeon were like, no, you don't get to do that. Which means that they, like, were in a weird situation where they sort of did it because they wanted to do it, and that was always the plan, but then they couldn't really do anything with it because they weren't allowed to, like, explicitly state that Jet was dead.
Yeah, which I suppose is why the two characters that were with him aren't in this.
Maybe the notion is they're off still dealing with their, you know, feelings after that.
Because it would confirm it. Because if they have those characters here without Jet, that confirms he died. And if Nickelodeon wanted
I didn't even think of it from that angle. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, if Nickelodeon wanted this, he might be dead, he might not be thing, then that would have broken that. So this is their way of... And it's a shame, because those characters would absolutely be there.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't think I have any other notes other than just that, like, we haven't really talked about it, but all the really creative combat stuff that happens in this episode is amazing. I could sit here and go, then there's the bit where this happens, and then there's the bit where this happens, and they have these weird, like, tank things they're in, and there's a really creative, like, fire net thing, you know, and like, Nadia watched this one with me, and she was like, well, they've got a theme and they're sticking to it, the Fire Nation, haven't they? I was like, yep, they sure do. You know, like, all the combat stuff's really good. We haven't really talked about it too much because, like, the reality of it is, like, I could sit here and list all the cool fight things that happen, but, you know, it's not really relevant. Oh, we should talk very briefly, because I know I've just realised how long we've gone. For once this week, guys, you're going to get a full-on hour of Avatar talk before we devolve into nonsense. Sokka goes on a bit of a nice arc this week as well, which we haven't really talked about, where he has to present his he has to present his thing as leader, like his plan, and it goes wrong, and he's all embarrassed. And Aang's like, mate, that's not being leader, that's public speaking. No one's good at that. And like, it's just a really nice thing for Aang to say, and also is very true. And then obviously Sokka gets to be the leader later on when they do when Hakoda gets like injured. So yeah, I don't really have anything to say on that other than that's a really nice way to slip in a little arc for Sokka about living up to what his dad's expectations of him are and his own expectations of himself. Because I don't think Hakoda puts a lot on Sokka. I think Sokka puts it on himself because he wants to live up to his dad, which is really nice because I think the lazy, cheap way to do that plot would be to have Hakoda be disappointed that Sokka wasn't being more of a leader or whatever, and that would have been awful. I like that Hakoda is a good dad. They need that. God, do they need that? They've lost their mum. Like, let's not give him a shit dad too. So, you know what I mean? Like those poor kids, those poor fucking kids. So I just thought that was just really well handled, top to bottom.
Do you think it's interesting though that a lot of the other threads aren't wrapped up in this episode? But I would love them to do more with it. But Sokka's kind of become the lead. That feels... If we don't get any of that plot next episode, I won't be going, oh, we didn't explore that, because we saw the beginning, we saw the middle, and we saw the end of Sokka's arc in this episode.
Yes.
But Aang's arc, Zuko's arc, Iroh's arc, you know, the actual sort of story function of the invasion, or the attack, rather, none of those things have been wrapped up. But... No. We have... Is it... I don't think it is, because it works, it's really clean, it's really nice. I'm not bothered, but if someone were to say to me, that jars with me because it's weird that you have a two-parter where one of the characters' arcs is wrapped up really succinctly in the first one and no one else's is, I'd go, yeah, that's fair. I don't feel it affects anything personally, but I'd understand the commentary.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because I'm sort of in a weird position there where I'm just kind of like, it didn't really occur to me that was like, because to me I'm like, well, it's the A plot, the B plot. The A plot's going across both episodes. The B plot gets wrapped up in its own episode. Next week we'll have its own B plot, presumably, that will get wrapped up within that episode. I think when you've got this many characters and moving parts, I think it's okay to have a B plot that sort of exists within the 22 minutes, even on a two-parter. But I could definitely see somebody having that criticism. I don't think I would feel it myself. And to be honest, it hadn't even occurred to me until you said it just then that might be an issue. But yeah, I could certainly see someone feeling that way. But I'm with you. I don't think I would. I don't think I would agree with that.
Yeah, no, same.
Should we get some trivia?
Should we triv it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some trivia. So, Nickelodeon, as it had done for the previous two-parters when they did gave it a name and aired it as a special. So they did that for The Library in the Desert, which they aired as The Fury of Aang. They did it for Serpent's Pass and The Drill when they, even though those two episodes were two separate episodes, listed them as Secret of the Fire Nation and aired those as a special. They did the same thing for this, which is, I think, why... Because I think the intention was for this episode to just be called The Invasion, but it's now got this rather clunky The Day of Black Sun Part 1, The Invasion title, where they've given it that subtitle almost ahead of time this time. But yeah, Nickelodeon went really hard on the promotion for this two-parter.
Oh, really?
They created a whole new website with links to a weird tournament game thing. They had a Turbo Nick site for it. They had wallpaper downloads. They even published a new online game the day before the special aired in the States. They went pretty hard promoting this.
Oh, wow. Blimey.
I remember distinctly watching this episode, though, because if memory serves, there was a gap between these two episodes and what came after, and just being like, it's a really cool mid-season finale, but fuck, where's the rest? I'm like Zuko from the previous episode, when he was reading the backstory of his grandfather, or was it, a few episodes ago, the Avatar of the Fire Lord, and he's just like, that's it? Where's the rest of it? As he's reading the scroll. That was me watching this. But yeah, that's how they promoted it. Hakoda sports the same symbol on his military uniform as Princess Yue had on her betrothal necklace from Han. I don't think there's any major significance to that. It's a water tribe symbol of some sort. Maybe it indicates family. Maybe there's some relation between Hakoda and Han. If you go back generations or something like that. I'm not sure. And it's some sort of old family insignia. Maybe. Unclear. But yeah, anyway. Thought that was just a nice little detail. Peanuts are an ingredient in dynamite, which actually gives merit to the machinist's attempt to make a peanut sauce-based bomb. In this episode, it's based on some legit science. I thought that was neat. All of the members of Team Avatar sport new attire in this episode. Aang obviously wearing a combination of his Fire Nation colours, sort of mixed into a new air nomad sort of garb. We've got Katara wearing arm and leg guards and hasn't got her hair braided anymore. She now carries 3 water skins as well for extra water for combat. Sokka sports himself a Water Tribe wolf armor, which is pretty cool. And I thought this was really fun. Toph wearing a sort of smaller variation on the earthbending soldier uniform. She didn't just sort of run around in her normal Toph gear. But she was in that at the beginning of the episode. But by the time we actually start the invasion, Toph was in the uniform of the other earthbending soldiers with those hats and stuff, which I thought was really cool. So yeah.
Everyone looked wicked.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, it's really cool designs. The submarines in this episode were revealed by the machinist to have the limit of air, which is actually a reasonable comparison to pre-Cold War and World War II submarines, which did exist and had the same problem where they'd have to surface every so many hours so that there'd be more air in the ship, which I thought was pretty cool. This is the first time we've seen members of the Foggy Swamp tribe that are female. There's a bunch of swamp people shown in a couple of shots in this episode doing various water bending and stuff, and there were a couple of female members of the swamp tribe that we hadn't seen in the episode The Swamp, so that was fun.
Nice.
Let's have a look. When Zuko walks out of his room in the royal palace, the shot is reminiscent of the last time Zuko saw his mother, so I'm guessing they paralleled the shots a little bit. So there you go.
That feels like it's very much whatever he's doing is very much linked to Mummy Fire.
Would agree. So that's the trivia. Should we do a listener question, Chris?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Right, so for those of you who don't know, every week we take on a listener question from one of our patrons. So if you'd like to ask us a question, you can go over to patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. For as little as $1 a month, you can be a member. We don't have tiered. You can give more, but for as little as $1 a month, you just are a member. We don't have certain things locked behind tiers or anything like that. You get episodes a week early of this podcast and Rewind reviews, and you can ask us questions, which we sometimes answer at the end of episodes. This week's question comes from Punkfish. I hope I'm saying that right. Who says, I process emotions vicariously through media, especially movies, shows, and music. I found that many people have a certain interest in these kind of media do that. Do you do the same? And do you have a specific memory of a movie or show helping you process something? Now, this is a really tough question. Because I watch a lot of things for the podcast and stuff. It does kind of accidentally make media a bit disposable, which is really unfortunate. And I think when I was younger, I certainly did a lot of that. But remembering exactly what emotions I was processing through which things is tougher. But I do have, and obviously, if I'm looking to just feel sad, I'll stick like the first 10 minutes of Up on or something, because everyone gets hit really hard by some of those Pixar movies. The end of Coco still breaks me every goddamn time. I don't know why the saddest movies I can think of are always fucking Pixar movies, but there you go. God, Toy Story 3.
That's
Jesus.
Sad. They're sad movies, man.
They are sad movies. People underestimate the sadness of those movies. But I will give the closest thing I can give to a recent example. And it was an accident. I didn't realise I was feeling a certain way, and then I stumbled across a thing. So I was just on YouTube one day, and as the YouTube algorithm does, it just shows you things you might want to listen to or watch. And what it recommended to me on that particular day was a song called When I Grow Up from the Matilda musical. Now, I've seen that musical a couple of times, I think, and it's great. It's one of my favourites. In fact, I have recently done some thinking and decided it's between that or Book of Mormon for my favourite West End show that you can go see right now. And because I think it's amazing.
Sorry,
now
I need to know. So, if the original Broadway cast, so are you talking about that's based on like shows to go? Why is Hamilton not number one? Is what I'm asking.
Well, I see the thing with Hamilton, and so Hamilton. Oh, okay, that's a really good point. Hamilton technically is my favorite, if that makes it in terms of like storytelling stuff. But if someone says to me like, "I want to go see a West End musical," I'm probably not going to send them to Hamilton because I think Hamilton.
Yeah, that's
really
what I'm
specific.
saying. Is it because of the part of you when you watch Hamilton in the West End sits there and thinks, oh, I'd love to be watching.
Okay, yeah. There's two factors to that. One is Hamilton as a show. I think is like wouldn't be the first Broadway or West End musical I send anyone to for a start if I'm recommending it. And recently there have been a lot of people asking me about what show should they go see because I've seen a few recently and people have gone, oh, what if I want to get into those, where would I start? I definitely would never start somewhere Hamilton. But you're right, the West End version of Hamilton is unfortunately inferior to the original, and that's only become more true as time's gone on because even the original West End cast that were trained by Alex Lacamoire and Lynn, they've moved on now, and I've seen clips of some of the new cast and they're fine, but I wouldn't, whereas and that might be my own personal bias and attachment to the original, but if you want to go see a show in the West End right now, I'm telling you to go see Book of Mormon or Matilda because those work regardless of the cast, I think.
Yeah, they're also way more, like, I adore
way
Hamilton
more accessible.
The accessibility is a really good point. Like, I adore Hamilton, and people that love Hamilton don't want to hear this, and I love Hamilton. It isn't the most accessible show in the way that Shakespeare is incredible and genius, and I fucking love Hamlet. It is not that accessible for everyone, and it is the same with Hamilton.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's what's funny about Hamilton is it's kind of a miracle that it's done as well as it has commercially because, that's in spite of it being a show that I would describe as not being particularly accessible, especially even I would say to a British audience, where American history isn't taught in the same way in schools. I don't recall a huge amount of my history lessons as a kid being looking at the founding fathers and the formation of America. I'm sure we covered it, but it wasn't really the focal point of any major module or anything like that. It's a pretty small. I know in American high schools and presumably middle schools as well, the history of their country is, I assume, a big deal. Not really so much in other countries. So a lot of people in the UK that go to see Hamilton really don't know who Hamilton is. There's a barrier of entry a little bit there, but it's still done very well, which is kind of amazing. But anyway, if you were to ask me at the moment about like West End musical, I'm telling you, that most people I'm going to recommend to either go to Book of Mormon or, depending on their like tolerance for like humor that's a little closer to the edge, I'd send them to Matilda. No, it's besides the point anyway. So YouTube knows me well enough to suggest When I Grow Up from Matilda, and I love that song. It's adorable. It's this fun little song where all these kids are imagining what they're going to do when they grow up, and they're like, I'm going to be tall enough to climb trees better, and I'm going to stay up late, and I'm going to eat lots of sweets because there'll be no grown up to tell me not to. And it's this really adorable kind of funny song about how a kid imagines their life will be when they grow up, and it's supposed to be comedic. It's sweet, but it's funny also. And I see it pop up on YouTube, and I click on it. Yeah, I love this song. And within about a minute, I'm bawling. Basically, it breaks me. And I don't know 100% why, even to this day, but my best guess, Chris, is the loss of childhood that I felt watching that, thinking about, the difference in, like, a person's life. Like, it's what you think you're going to be when you're young and how quickly and fleeting life is, but also so long, and how much maturing our society forces people to do so quickly. I don't know. It just absolutely broke me. And whenever I'm feeling that way now, I get it out of my system by just watching that song again, or listening to that song. It's that every time.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
So yeah, and so I guess that's a way I deal with the loss of my own sort of youth is by listening to that song or watching the video of the cast perform it. I think they performed it at like an award ceremony or something, and I so that there's a video of the cast performing it out there, and I've watched that a few times. Or maybe it's like a part of a mix. I can't remember, but yeah, that's my example.
Nice,
so, yeah.
Very nice. That's a great answer. I I found it a really difficult question as well, because I can't pinpoint, especially this. One of the specifics of the question is a film or TV show, and I can't pinpoint a time where I can go, watching this TV show helped me process this thing. But I can pinpoint some other stuff which are close to that. And when talking, I can't remember who submitted the question.
Oh, Punkfish.
And it's an amazing question, by the way. It's a brilliant question.
Yeah, it's one of a couple. It's one of a couple of questions that we were put to us to one side, and I gave to Chris in advance because I thought, that deserves to be like. And I'm not saying it puts it above any of the questions, but it's a lot of the questions we get asked are like fun little questions we can definitely sort of come up with an answer on the spot for. But this was one I was just like, no, I need a minute to think about this one. And this is one of a couple that we did that with this year.
And it's brilliant, and they reference music, and music is how I process things. I think that, there are times when I've been highly stressed or annoyed, or just in a heightened state of some form of emotion, one way or the other. And Jess has literally said you should go out for like a walk or a run and listen to some music. And it's been, I'll be honest with you, it's been one of the things in a way that I've found tricky about lockdown. Like, I literally missed walking and listening to music because there weren't as many opportunities to do that, certainly in the first sort of heaviest of lockdowns. But in terms of film and TV shows, kind of specifically, I don't know how much it's fair to completely credit the show as well as the discussion around it, but Steven Universe and doing Steven University and the conversations it garnered with our Discord community and all of that sort of stuff definitely gave me a much deeper understanding and sort of made me so aware of things like pronouns and genders and things like that. And like I say, I think it's partly the show, I think it's partly the discussion, I think it's partly the amazing Discord community. But the moment, and I think of it because I have a specific real world moment where I went, oh, this has had a huge impact on me. And I was talking to someone very important to me about an event and whether they were getting a +1. And I said, well, if you're with someone by then, maybe you can bring them. And they were like, oh, very clever. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, you've said someone and them, clearly very deliberately. And I was like, huh? And basically what they were saying is they were sort of saying they were thinking I had deliberately said them and they because I thought they might be gay, and they sort of thought I was almost sort of teasing it out of them by doing that, and I genuinely wasn't. Like, I literally had just the show, the conversations, the Discord, as in the conversation is what I mean by the word Discord, not the literal
you mean
Discord.
Discourse rather than Discord.
Yeah, discourse. And the Discord as well. All of those things had just put me in a place where I now will naturally, if I don't know, I'm much better at saying they, them, partner, pronouns that could refer to either male or women. Just naturally, I honestly was not in any way making a point or subtly suggesting something or thinking something about them and using that to influence my language. It was so second nature to me to say they that I just did it. And I credit Steven Universe and the discussions around it with that completely. I know it's not the same as using a show to process emotions, but it's definitely a show and the resulting conversation teaching me something. And then other smaller examples are, I genuinely, if I'm watching The West Wing or The Newsroom, I can hear its influence when I at work, when I talk about something I categorically know, or when I talk about an idea that I'm confident in. There's so much confidence and authority in my voice if I've been watching those shows. Like, we've rewatched The Newsroom recently, and I'll explain something to someone with this is what we're doing, and we're not discussing this. this is what we're doing because it's the right thing to do, and here's the reasons it's right. And this is just not up for debate sort of thing. And I think that's influenced by those shows. And then finally, the one that really came to mind is if I in some way, and I don't know how subconsciously I've done this in the past, but there will be times when I subconsciously and consciously do it in the future. I don't doubt. If I need a comfort, if I need to feel, I don't know, like need to think about my childhood, need to feel at home, need to feel warm, need to feel all those things, the show I would turn to, and do turn to, the show that brings me more kind of comfort than any other is Only Fools and Horses, because it takes me back to a million places, a million things. It takes me back to childhood. And it also, some stuff very much doesn't hold up in that show. But it also, there's some stuff where you watch it and you hear a line that is, the dialogue in that show can be second to none. And you easily forget because you think about all the classic scenes and all the classic jokes. And then you'll be watching an episode and there'll be some really clever wordplay. And you'll remember it all over again, as well as remembering holding the VHSs or watching an episode on holiday with the family. I think only there's other shows, there's Kenan and Kel, there's Boy Meets World, there's Friends, but I think the one more than any other that comforts me is Only Fools and Horses. So yeah, slightly different interpretations of the questions, but those were the places my mind went when we were asked the question.
Yeah, and I think the Steven Universe one is interesting because I had the experience when we did that podcast similar, where it's kind of one of those things where you sort of you live in a bubble because you surround yourself with like-minded people, right? So no one that I spend time with isn't progressive enough, like nice enough, like tolerant enough to not care what someone's gender or sexuality or it doesn't irrelevant. So it's easy when you're in that situation to think the world has moved on and that it's just these small pockets of intolerance that still exist. And I think for me, Steven University was kind of like a wake-up call as to like how much work there still is to be done. And I remember distinctly feeling when we started tackling like Cartoon Network UK's censorship of the show, the struggle that Rebecca had even getting the wedding into it, the censorship of the show in countries like Russia, just it really hitting me that I'd put myself in a bubble where I'd kind of gone, it's not fixed, but we've made a lot of progress to going like, oh, we've still we're the top of this mountain is still quite some way away, We've scaled a chunk of it for sure, but as a society, but oh dear Lord, there's so much further to go. And that realization hitting me of feeling like we were close to the top and then having that rug pulled out from under me was my experience going through Steven University, and having people tell their stories. And we got emails, these really brilliant, articulate emails that were just very, very... They're very kind about... I feel like we were given weird permission to do what we did, because I feel like now, looking back, I think if I was in the position I'm in now, but we hadn't done Steven University, but I'd still had the experience, if that makes sense, of having done a show like that, maybe, I would probably say, no, that's not for us. Let's let some people that aren't straight white men talk about that show. We don't need more, But we got emails from people saying it's just really nice to hear that there are straight white men on our side, which is a horrible thing to hear because it just makes you go oh god, we really are the enemy. And I don't know, it's yeah. We went through a lot with that show, I think, and covering it.
Yeah, completely. And I think more than any other podcast we've done, that's had a genuine impact on our lives and attitudes. I remember the influence of that show, and actually another one I thought of when I was thinking about the question. Ted Lasso, I think, has given a lot of people permission to just be overtly, in scenarios that need it, just be overtly good. Do you know what I mean? They've made being good and doing the right thing purely because it's the right thing. And like they've made it feel like that can be a reason sometimes, because sometimes in different scenarios, the right thing might not, I don't know, politically or economically or whatever it may be the thing to do. And I think that show has helped people have a bit more confidence with that. And like I got an example from the other week. I've got some friends that are not necessarily nasty, but issues around gender politics are incredibly complicated, and I've got friends that definitely don't sit where I sit. And I remember we were talking about it and having this kind of quite complex discussion, and one of them brought up a video of some guy, I don't know his name, some YouTuber, where he was arguing against transgender, and he was talking about, he said to someone, he was doing that whole sexist biology thing, and he said to someone, how old are you? And they were like, I'm 22. And he was like, right, well, why aren't you 63? And she's like, what? And then he sort of goes into it. And my mate like played the entire video. And the guy, I don't agree with his argument, but it was an eloquent argument. Like it was put together and debated well. And then at the end of it, I just went, but why? I don't understand why he cares. And my mate looked at me and was like, what do you mean? And I was like, if someone wants you to call them they, who gives a fuck? How complicated is that for you to do? How hard is it for you to say they, or for you to call them a different name? Like, it's the same syllables. Like, I don't understand what the point is. Like, who gives a shit?
And that's what always drives me crazy about people going on about like masks and stuff. Like I remember having a debate with somebody who was insisting on not wearing a mask ever and all this stuff. Oh, it's just a muzzle or whatever. And I just said, well, okay, but how much inconvenience is it? Number one, pretty minimal. A little bit of an adjustment period when you first start wearing it, where you've got to get used to that part of your face having a little covering over it, whatever. But you do it for a little bit of time, you get used to it pretty quick. I said, so other than that, the situation we're in now is that basically if I'm wrong, no harm done. If masks don't work, well, I've not made any situation worse. All right, I haven't made it better. The mask doesn't work. All right, so if they come out tomorrow and everyone suddenly discovers something that makes them go, masks categorically don't work, and the CDC agree, and the World Health Organization come out and say it, and every scientist suddenly goes, yeah, we've seen this new research, it tracks, masks don't work. I'm not going to feel bad about having worn them. Ever. Not for a minute. Because if I'm wrong, no harm, no foul. If this person I was talking to is wrong, they've put lives at risk. And I said, I don't know why you think that's a justifiable stance.
Yeah. And yeah, completely. But I think shows like Ted Lasso have weirdly helped people feel more confident to say that. Like the scenario I was in, every other person in the room was, I think, on the side of the person showing the video. And it's more complex than my argument as well. Of course it is. My argument of, well, who gives a shit? Like, because not everyone feels that way, and that's what makes it complex. You have to try and convince people not to. And I don't even know if convince is the right word. There's a lot of nuance to the argument. But I think without Steven Universe and without a show like Ted Lasso, if I'm in a room of friends and I'm thinking, well, I think this, but I'm probably outnumbered, and they're going to look at me and go, well, I don't know what to say to that, which they did, and it was hugely satisfying. Maybe I don't have the confidence to go. Maybe I don't have the confidence. Maybe I'm thinking, well, I think that's the right thing, but we're having a nice evening. I don't want to ruin it. Like, I'm outnumbered. Maybe I'm not going to say anything. But I think thanks to Steven Universe and shows like Ted Lasso, and again, shows like The West Wing and stuff like that, I think that's how TV can influence you sometimes to go, well, no, fuck it. Like, I'm going to sort of do a little bit of squashing here by simply going, but why do you care? Like, what skin is it off your nose? And again, even that argument has its nuances, but I don't think that happens without, well, it definitely doesn't happen without Steven Universe. I can tell you that categorically. It doesn't happen without Steven Universe, and it doesn't happen without Steven University. But I think a show like Ted Lasso is also having a really good influence on me and other people as well.
Yeah, would 100% agree. I mean, again, I hope that was a sufficient. I mean, we talked a lot, and we did get into some interesting topics, but I don't really know if that 100% answers the question that was asked. But
no. So instead, instead, then I'll give a an answer then, where I can be more emphatic to what the question's asking, but I'll have to do it with a song. Not a TV show for the reasons listed.
Yeah.
If I'm angry and like raging anger, my go-to would be to run and listen to Bleed It Out by Linkin Park or Nerds by Bo Burnham.
Oh, Nerds by Bo Burnham's a great song.
So that's my sort of, I will process anger with those two songs in particular. There are some others as well, but those two are the go-tos, or at least they were. I haven't done that for years, to be honest. I haven't done that for at least 4 years. Well, potentially the time I've been with Jess, which maybe could say a lot. But yeah, I haven't done that for a long time. But that's an answer more directly answering the question, but it's with a song, not a TV show or a film.
Yeah.
Have you got a song? Like that you can...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Unfortunately, I think it's a song that literally no one has access to but me, and that's really tragic. So years and years ago, I was at a tiny venue in Stockport, the town I grew up in, a little place called Romley. It's like 40 people could sit in there, and they had a band on who are a local band called Noonday Sun, and apparently there's like an American act, like a teen Christian rock act or Christian pop act that exists called Noonday Sun or something, and if you Google it you can't find, but there's a group from Manchester. They'd never done an album, they'd never released a single, they just had this little EP they'd made themselves, and they I was talking to them afterwards about how much I loved the music for the show, and they gave me this CD, and I used iTunes to rip it from the CD onto an MP3, and I've kept these MP3s over the years because these songs will literally never exist anywhere again. And there's 4 songs, and they are the most comforting songs. Like, I don't know, it's something about the music and tone and stuff. I actually when we did our live stream, I think I used them as the background for when we were on the
I think you did, yeah.
Well, it was when we were on what was the page? It was the stream starting shortly page. I had them as the backing. But whenever I'm sort of like in a fraught place, I just need to like bring myself to a more centered place. Those songs just bring me peace and joy. So yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I think I've got. I think they're on an old laptop because I think you gave. I think I've got. I think I can find that song. So it's not just you.
Particularly, there's a few different ones. So it's 4 songs. They're all fantastic, but there's the one I think I go to the most, maybe Tablecloth. Though there's 38,000 feet as well is really good. I don't know. That EP I suppose is the wider answer rather than a specific song, because like there is a particular song that I will necessarily go to, but like yeah, the EP in general is what I land on. So yeah, there you go.
There you go. Oh, but Dan.
Yes.
We should tease next week's question.
Yes. So next week's question is a question we've teased for multiple episodes now. Next week, guys, we're gonna do part 2 of this finale, and I'm sorry this episode is overrun so much. This is the longest episode of this we've maybe ever done. Sorry about that. But yeah, I hope the fact that we did an hour of Avatar talk before we went off piece makes the last half an hour more acceptable.
Yeah, it's good. It was. I think it was the question warranted at the time.
No, I agree. I thought it was an interesting discussion. It's just whether it's like...
And let me... Because I'm slightly worried about something. Let me emphatically say my mates aren't in any way bad people or horrific or transphobic or anything like that. There's just nuances to their views that I don't share. Like, I just want to be very clear. I hope I haven't painted my friends or that particular group of friends in a bad light. There are just elements of the topic... that we.
I think that's the one thing all this J.K. Rowling stuff has brought up for me is like realizing how common her belief structure is in the UK. It's pretty prevalent and it's pretty upsetting. We're not a very, very tolerant country at all.
And in my memory of the night, and I could be wrong, but the video wasn't even presented as "this is my view." The video was presented as "this is a guy eloquently explaining," which I don't think anyone, whether you disagree with them or not, no one could, you could. They were presenting the argument clearly. They weren't raging and yelling as some do, and that was more the point of showing the video that affirm this is what I believe. I just want to, make it clear. My mates aren't knobheads at all. There's just, as you say, it's more prevalent for it not to be as black and white for some people as it is for it to be something that they want to sort of think through and discuss, as we did on Stephen University.
Yeah, for sure. So next week we're coming back to oh god, I've got a segue from what you just said into this. Next week we're coming back to the condiment question. We're finally doing it. Chris is going to tell us. God, it'll be a very different tone question answer to this one. This one led us down a lot of very interesting, but quite sort of deep paths. Next week, in contrast to this, Chris is going to tell us in order what his favourite condiments are. He's going to rank them. So yeah, come back for that next week. Apologies for this one running over. Hopefully there's still the hour of Avatar talk, so no one could really, I hope, complain too much. But yeah, thank you all for listening very much. We appreciate it. You can get us in all the normal places. Patreon.com/NothingButStaticUK if you wish to ask a question or just generally support what we do. There's other ways you can support us. You can just go give us a review or a like or a thumbs up or whatever on the various platforms that we're on. We're on all the usual ones, iTunes and Spotify and YouTube and all that stuff. You can go subscribe to us on YouTube. That also helps. Another way you could help us and support what we do, quite simply, just keep listening. We appreciate that. Or tell a friend. No problem. Do that too. That's fun.
Yeah,
if every listener that we had told a friend, we'd have like 5 new listeners.
Which would be amazing. Because that would double our numbers.
We've got to go get some tips from the over-analysing Avatar guy, I think. I'm going to email him.
Yeah, I'll tell you what his big point would be. Keep it succinct.
Yeah. Oh dear, I cry in the hour and a half we just did. But yeah, no, thanks everyone for listening. We really do appreciate it. But that is, we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna let you go. We're gonna give you back the gift of the rest of your afternoon. So thanks everyone for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next week when we sit down to watch The Day of Black Sun Part 2, The Eclipse.